107. Anti-Terrorism Force Protection and Security Fundamentals. The Anti-Terrorism (AT) program is a security-related program that falls under the overarching Combating Terrorism and Force Protection programs. The AT program is a collective, proactive effort focused on the prevention and detection of terrorist attacks against Department of Defense (DoD) personnel, their families, facilities, installations, and infrastructure critical to mission accomplishment, as well as the preparation to defend against and planning for the response to the consequences of terrorist incidents. The Interior Guard Chain of Command. The Interior Guard is detailed by a commander to preserve order, protect property, and enforce regulations within the jurisdiction of his/her command. Responsibilities include Commanding Officer, CO. The responsibility of the CO for the security of the command is absolute. May delegate authority to subordinates for the execution of duties, but such delegation shall in no way relieve the CO of the responsibility for the security of the command. Field Officer of the Day. Supervises the entire Interior Guard. Receives orders from the CO only, and serves as the CO's direct personal representative. Officer of the Day, OOD. The OOD, Officer of the Deck aboard ships, supervises the main guard. Charged with the execution of all orders of the CO which concern the security of the area within the assigned jurisdiction. In case of alarm, acts immediately to protect life, government property, and to preserve order. Commander of the Guard. Ensures proper instructions, discipline, and performance of the duty of the main guard. Ensures that all members of the guard are correctly instructed in their orders and duties, and they are understood and properly executed. When an alarm is sounded, expeditiously forms the reserve, if necessary. Ensures the security of prisoners under charge of the guard. Sergeant of the Guard, SOG. Assists the commander of the guard in ensuring proper instructions, discipline, and performance of the duties of the main guard. Ensures that the property under charge of the guard is cared for and accounted for properly. Ensures that the guardhouse and its surrounding areas are maintained in proper police. Forms the guard whenever necessary. Corporal of the Guard, COG. Supervises the members of the guard assigned to that relief. Assigns sentries on that relief to posts. Forms the relief in sufficient time to accomplish the following: issue guard property, inspect appearance, fitness for duty, condition of arms, issue ammunition, and supervise loading of weapons. Main Guard Sentries. All members of the guard will memorize, understand, and comply with the general orders for sentries. Members of the guard not on post will remain in the immediate vicinity of the guardhouse except when granted permission to leave by the commander of the guard. 11 General Orders. General Order 1. To take charge of this post and all government property in view. General Order 2. To walk my post in a military manner, keeping always on alert and observing everything that takes place within sight or hearing. General Order 3. To report all violations of orders I am instructed to enforce. General Order 4. To repeat all calls from post more distant from the guardhouse than my own. General Order 5. To quit my post only when properly relieved. General Order 6. To receive, obey, and pass on to the sentry who relieves me all orders from the commanding officer, officer of the day, and officers and non-commissioned officers of the guard only. General Order 7. To talk to no one except in the line of duty. General Order 8. To give the alarm in case of fire or disorder. General Order 9. To call the corporal of the guard in any case not covered by instructions. General Order 10. To salute all officers and all colors and standards not cased. General Order 11. To be especially watchful at night and during the time for challenging, to challenge all persons on or near my post, and to allow no one to pass without proper authority. Deadly force and when it may be used. Deadly force is the efforts of an individual used against another to cause death, substantial risk of death, or serious bodily harm. Deadly force is justified only under conditions of necessity and may be used only when lesser means cannot be reasonably employed or have failed and the risk of death or serious bodily harm to innocent persons is not increased by its use. Deadly force is authorized under the following circumstances. Inherent right of self-defense. When there is reasonable belief that a person poses an imminent threat of death or serious bodily harm to DoD persons. Self-defense includes defense of other DoD persons in the vicinity. Defense of others. In defense of non-DoD persons in the vicinity when directly related to the assigned activity or mission. Assets vital to national security. When deadly force reasonably appears to be necessary to prevent the actual theft or sabotage of assets vital to national security. Inherently dangerous property. When deadly force reasonably appears to be necessary to prevent the actual theft or sabotage of inherently dangerous property. National critical infrastructure. When deadly force reasonably appears to be necessary to prevent the sabotage or destruction of national critical infrastructure defined as President-designated public utilities, or similar critical infrastructure, vital to public health or safety, the damage to which the President of the United States determines would create an imminent threat of death or serious bodily harm or injury. Serious offenses against persons. When deadly force reasonably appears to be necessary to prevent the commission of a serious offense, one that involves imminent threat of death or serious bodily harm or injury, example, sniping, including the defense of other persons where deadly force is directed against the person threatening to commit the offense, example, murder, armed robbery, or aggravated assault. Arrest or apprehension. When deadly force reasonably appears to be necessary to arrest or apprehend when there is probable cause to believe a person has committed a serious offense and there is an imminent threat of death or serious bodily harm to DoD personnel or others in the vicinity as referred to in subparagraphs 4.d, 3, through 4.d, 6 of this enclosure. Escape. When deadly force reasonably appears to be necessary to prevent the escape of a prisoner provided there is probable cause to believe that such person has committed or attempted to commit a serious offense that is one that involves imminent threat of death or seriously bodily harm and would pose an imminent threat of death or serious bodily harm to DoD personnel or others in the vicinity. Terms for information. Access. The ability and opportunity to obtain knowledge or possession of classified information. Classification. The determination by an authorized official that official information requires, in the interests of national security, a specific degree of protection against unauthorized disclosure. Compromise. An unauthorized disclosure of classified information to one or more persons who do not possess a current valid security clearance. Compromise can be intentional or inadvertent. Spillage. Occurs when data is placed on an information technology system possessing insufficient information security controls to protect the data at the required classification, i.e., secret information on an unclassified machine. Classified information. Information that has been determined under Executive Order, EO 12958 or any successor order, EO 12951 or any successor order, or the Atomic Energy Act of 1954, 42 U.S.C. 2011, to require protection against unauthorized disclosure. The three classification levels. Top secret. Classification level applied to information whose unauthorized disclosure could reasonably be expected to cause exceptionally grave damage to the national security. Example includes information whose unauthorized release could result in armed hostilities against the US or its allies. Secret. Classification level applied to information whose unauthorized disclosure could reasonably be expected to cause serious damage to the national security. Example includes information whose unauthorized release could result in the disruption of foreign relations significantly affecting the national security. Confidential. Classification level applied to information whose unauthorized disclosure could reasonably be expected to cause damage to the national security. Example includes information whose unauthorized release could result in disclosure of ground, air, and naval forces, example force levels and force dispositions. Upon finding unsecured classified material, protect it from further compromise and notify the custodian or security manager immediately. The steps of the Operational Security (OPSEC) process. The OPSEC process is a systematic method used to identify, control, and protect critical information using the following. Identify critical information. Information about DoD activities, intentions, capabilities, or limitations that an adversary seeks in order to gain a military, political, diplomatic, economic, or technological advantage. Such information, if revealed to an adversary, may prevent or degrade mission accomplishment, cause loss of life, or damage friendly resources. Conduct a threat analysis. Threat information is necessary to develop appropriate countermeasures. The threat analysis includes identifying potential adversaries and their associated capabilities and intentions to collect, analyze, and exploit critical information and indicators. Conduct a vulnerability analysis. An OPSEC vulnerability exists when the adversary is capable of collecting critical information or indicators, analyzing it, and then acting quickly enough to impact friendly objectives. Conducting exercises, red teaming, and analyzing operations can help identify vulnerabilities. Conduct a risk assessment. The risk assessment is the process of evaluating the risks to information based on susceptibility to intelligence collection and the anticipated severity of loss. It involves assessing the adversary's ability to exploit vulnerabilities that would lead to the exposure of critical information and the potential impact it would have on the mission. Apply countermeasures. Countermeasures are designed to prevent an adversary from detecting critical information, provide an alternative interpretation of critical information or indicators, deception, or deny the adversary's collection system. Methods used in the collection of information. Human intelligence, HUMINT. The collection of information from human sources. The collection may be done openly, such as interview of witnesses and suspects, or it may be done through clandestine or covert means, espionage. Signals intelligence, SIGINT. Refers to electronic transmissions that can be collected by ships, planes, ground sites, or satellites. Communications intelligence, COMINT, is a type of SIGINT and refers to the interception of communications between two parties. Open source intelligence, OSINT. Refers to a broad array of information and sources that are generally available, including information obtained from the media, newspapers, radio, television, etc., professional and academic records, papers, conferences, professional associations, etc., and public data, government reports, demographics, hearings, speeches, etc. Imagery intelligence, IMINT. Intelligence derived from the exploitation of imagery collected by visual photography, infrared, lasers, multispectral sensors, and radar. These sensors produce images of objects optically, electronically, or digitally on film, electronic display devices, or other media. Measurement and signatures intelligence, MASINT. Relatively little-known collection discipline that concerns weapons capabilities and industrial activities. MASINT includes the advanced processing and use of data gathered from overhead and airborne IMINT and SIGINT collection systems. The concept of an insider threat and how to identify one. An insider threat is a person with authorized access who uses that access, wittingly or unwittingly, to harm national security interests or national security through unauthorized disclosure, data modification, espionage, terrorism, or kinetic actions resulting in loss or degradation of resources or capabilities. Insider threat identification. Information collection. Keeping classified materials in an unauthorized location, attempting to access sensitive information without authorization, obtaining access to sensitive information inconsistent with present duty requirements. Information transmittal. Using an unclassified medium to transmit classified materials, discussing classified materials on a non-secure telephone, removing classification markings from documents. Additional suspicious behaviors. Repeated or unrequired work outside of normal duty hours, sudden reversal of financial situation or a sudden repayment of large debts or loans, attempting to conceal foreign travel. Terrorism and its characteristics. Terrorism. Unlawful use or threatened use of violence to force or to intimidate governments or societies to achieve political, religious, or ideological objectives. Terrorist motivations. Terrorists are motivated by religion, prestige, power, political change, and material gain. Terrorists believe that they are righteous and act in the name of the people. Perspectives of terrorism. Terrorism can be a cheap, low-risk, highly effective way for weak nations, individuals, or groups to challenge stronger nations or groups and achieve objectives beyond their own abilities. Long-range goals. Topple governments. Influence top-level decisions. Gain recognition for their cause. Terrorism and its characteristics. Short-range goals. Reducing government credibility. Obtaining funds and equipment. Disrupting communications. Demonstrating power. Delaying the political process. Reducing the government's economy. Influencing elections. Freeing prisoners. Demoralizing and discrediting the security force. Intimidating a particular group. Causing a government to overreact. Gain recognition for their causes. The Force Protection Condition, FPCON, system. FPCON is a standardized DoD identification system for recommended preventive actions and responses to terrorist threats against U.S. personnel and facilities. The system is the principal means for a commander to apply an operational decision on how to protect against terrorism and facilitates coordination among DoD components and support for anti-terrorism activities. DoD FPCON consists of 5 progressive levels of increasing at protective measures. FCON Normal applies when a general global threat of possible terrorist activity exists and warrants a routine security posture. At a minimum, access control will be conducted at all DoD installations and facilities. Actions taken at this level include, but are not limited to: secure and randomly inspect buildings, rooms, and storage areas not in regular use. Conduct random security spot checks of vehicles and persons entering facilities under the jurisdiction of the United States. Limit access points for vehicles and personnel commensurate with a reasonable flow of traffic. Identify defense critical assets and high occupancy buildings. FCON Alpha applies when there is an increased general threat of possible terrorist activity against personnel or facilities, and the nature and extent of the threat are unpredictable. Alpha measures must be capable of being maintained indefinitely. Actions taken at this level include, but are not limited to: continue or introduce all measures of the previous FPCON level. Personnel with access to building and area evacuation plans must be available at all times. Plans should be in place to execute access control procedures. Key personnel required to implement security plans should be on call and readily available. Initiate food and water risk management procedures, brief personnel on food and water security procedures, and report any unusual activities. Test mass notification system. FCON Bravo. Applies when an increased or more predictable threat of terrorist activity exists. Sustaining Bravo measures for a prolonged period may affect operational capability and military-civil relationships with local authorities. Actions taken at this level include, but are not limited to: fully implement all measures of lower FPCON levels. Enforce control of entry onto facilities containing U.S. infrastructure critical to mission accomplishment, lucrative targets, or high-profile locations, and randomly search vehicles entering these areas. Particular scrutiny should be given to vehicles that are capable of concealing a large IED, example, cargo vans, delivery vehicles, sufficient to cause catastrophic damage to property or loss of life. Randomly inspect commercial deliveries. Advise family members to check home deliveries. Increase security measures and guard presence or initiate increased patrols and surveillance of DoD housing areas, schools, messes, on-base clubs, military treatment facilities, and similar high-occupancy targets to improve deterrence and defense. FCON Charlie. Applies when an incident occurs or intelligence is received indicating some form of terrorist action or targeting against personnel or facilities is likely. Prolonged implementation of Charlie measures may create hardship and affect the activities of the unit and its personnel. Actions taken at this level include, but are not limited to: fully implement all measures of lower FPCON levels. Recall additional required personnel. Ensure armed augmentation security personnel are aware of current rules of engagement and any applicable status of forces agreements, SOFA. Review types of weapons and ammunition issued to augmentation personnel. Limit access points in order to enforce entry control. Randomly search vehicles. Increase patrolling of the installation/facility/unit, including waterside perimeters, if appropriate. Be prepared to assist local authorities in searching for threatening actions and persons outside the perimeter. FCON Delta. Applies in the immediate area where a terrorist attack has occurred or when intelligence has been received that terrorist action against a specific location or person is imminent. This FPCON is usually declared as a localized condition. FCON Delta measures are not intended to be sustained for an extended duration. Actions taken at this level include, but are not limited to: fully implement all measures of lower FPCON levels. Search all personally carried items, example suitcases, briefcases, packages, backpacks, brought into the installation or facility. Restrict all non-essential movement. Begin continuous monitoring for chemical, biological, and radiological contamination. Methods to reduce visibility to adversaries. Social media. Refrain from posting mission/personally identifiable information onto social media web pages. Always set privacy settings to allow only friends to view. Turn off location services. All affiliation requests should be verified for credentials prior to accepting. Avoid opening email messages from unknown or unreliable sources. Practice operational security at all times. Workplace guidance. Remove CAC when leaving the workspace. Ensure personally identifiable information, PII, is secured. Refrain from sending emails with PII. Apply proper encryption if it is absolutely necessary. Properly mark all media with appropriate classification level. Report all suspicious persons loitering near your office or in unauthorized areas. Watch for unfamiliar vehicles cruising or parked frequently in the area, particularly if one or more occupants remain in the vehicle for extended periods. Report any suspicious videotaping/photography or unusual accommodation requests. Maintain a low profile. Ensure that your dress, conduct, and mannerisms do not attract attention. Make an effort to blend into the local environment. Avoid publicity. Do not go out in big groups. Stay away from civil disturbances and demonstrations. Be unpredictable. Avoid establishing a pattern and vary the route and the time you leave and return home during your daily routine. Vary your style of dress. Avoid deserted streets or country roads. Avoid traveling alone. Let people close to you know where you are going and what you will be doing. Remain vigilant. Watch for anything suspicious or out of place. Seek knowledge of the local situation and be aware of your surroundings. Do not give out personal information over the telephone. Pre-select a secure area in which you can take refuge if you are being followed. Report any incident of being followed to the military police and to your command security officer. Protect your automobile. Park in well-lighted areas with multiple exits. Avoid leaving the vehicle unattended and in the open. Lock the doors, the trunk, and the gas cap when leaving the vehicle. Upon returning to the vehicle, search it before operating or driving. Check the exterior of the vehicle for packages left under the vehicle, ground disturbed around the vehicle, or loose wiring, string, or tape. Check the interior of the vehicle for objects out of place or anything out of the ordinary.